any of the following and all of the following parameters. There are two options under parameter, and it's any or all of the following. And this works exactly the same way as in filters, and they're used with the if statements, and they come into operation when you have two lines underneath the any or all operand. And again, go back to the filters chapter if you don't understand how this section works. It's identical to the filters. You might have noticed in running a global change that you can either manipulate one parameter by multiplying it by another parameter, or manipulate a third parameter by multiplying it by two others. And therefore you can't multiply three parameters together in a line in a global change. So if you need to use three parameters, you actually need to do it on two lines, and the first calculation needs to be saved as a temporary value. So this temporary value here is being saved as a user definable field. And what I'm doing is I'm dividing the actual cost by the actual labour units to get the unit rate that we've incurred to date. And then the remaining cost, this is the temporary value, is the unit rate incurred to date, and the remaining cost is the unit rate to date times the remaining labour hours. So we're reforecasting the final forecast cost based on the incurred rate. And therefore you need to create a temporary value using a user definable field. So a temporary value may be stored as a user definable field, it can be used on subsequent lines, and any user definable field may be used as a temporary value as long as it can hold the right information, so it needs to be a number or an integer usually. So what we're showing here is if labour units are not equal to 0 hours, so you've got some more hours to go, and the units percent complete is greater than 30%, so you're more than 30% through your labour, this will reforecast the final forecast cost of the project. So any user definable field can be used as a temporary value. Global change functions. There are some functions that may be used with the global change in the parameter or value field in the then and else fields. So these functions, for example, the day of the week selects the day number of the week, say Monday will be 1, Tuesday will be 2. Left string allows you to extract characters from the beginning of a text field. Right string allows you to select characters from the end of a text field, and substring allows you to select characters in the middle of a text field. And these can be used for various purposes, like creating a description from an activity code, or for changing activity IDs if you want to add a character in the middle or the end. So we'll have a look at these and how these work in the next section. More advanced examples of global change. So the first one we're going to have a look at is how to change an activity ID by adding a middle character. So what we're doing here is we created a global change where we're changing all the activities, but you could just select some if you want to, or range. And temporary one, which is a user definable field, which would probably be a text field, equals left string activity ID 2. So this takes the first two characters of the activity ID, puts into temporary one, and then we're concatenating C after it. So temporary one will be the first two characters plus C. Then temporary 2 is another user definable field. Again, that would be a text field, and we're using substring, so it's taking the third character to the last character. Maximum number of characters in an activity ID is 20, and it's putting it into temporary 2. Now the activity ID in the third line is the concatenation of temporary 1 and temporary 2, so this will effectively put the C in the third character of the activity ID. You may end up with some problems if you've got activity IDs that are 20 characters, but this should work for most situations. The next global change we're going to have a look at is how to assign resources against roles. So what we have here is we're saying when the role equals sales engineer and the start date is greater than the current data date, therefore all the activities have not started, then we're assigning the resource Angela Lowe. So this will either assign the resource to the role or replace an existing resource. More advanced examples of global change. So a global change can be used for the following purposes. First of all, adding a middle character to an activity ID, as we've just seen. You can add a prefix to an activity ID. You can replace one resource with another, but ensure that you check the assignment staffing in the User Preferences Calculations tab. You can update the remaining durations from a step % complete by setting the duration % complete to equal the physical % complete. You can edit the activity name using global change functions, and you can set the plan dates to equal the start and finish dates before applying Progress Spotlight, so the actual changes are not changed by the Progress Spotlight function.